And joining me now is David Lowe, a senior research fellow at Leeds Beckett University, who specializes in security issues and criminal law, and Kivanc Ulusoy, who is a professor at international relations at Istanbul University. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you here. After the killing of Daesh leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi by U.S. forces in Idlib, Turkey also stepped up its operations inside and outside of Turkey. And President Erdogan just recently announced that one of his wife's sister, brother-in-law, and a prominent bomb maker were under Turkish custody. David, how significant is this, and how much of an intelligence assets are family members, you think?
It's significant because actually tracing al-Baghdadi has been important because he's been a target for some time. So that's significant, but don't think that's the end of Daesh. There'll be a new leader, but it's significant in, as you said, family members. You look at the operations run by US forces. In the short term, the intelligence they got from electronic communications and from those who they captured, as long as it will provided that they actually pass on information, will be vital in the short term. But I think
what kind of intelligence they can get from them?
Well, it'd be looking at any operations they've been planning, any support systems they've got, any contacts globally. It's quite vast when you start to put it down. There's all sorts of really good source of information, but it's like anything else with any organization like Daesh or any other terrorist organization, they can quickly move and change their situation.
Okay, so Kivanc, what do you think will happen to those people? I mean, who has jurisdiction over them?
So there is a deep moral and legal issue here, but there has been a new and widespread literature on what to do with these kind of people called after a war on terrorism, and how
this
to
is
end
something
the war.
new to the literature, right?
Ending the war is has not been a new issue since the end of the Second World War. There has been a variety of cases, new issues, starting from the Nuremberg trials, for instance. Yeah, you see, this is, I think, can be regarded in this context. It's how to end a war against terrorism, how to end the war against Daesh. So this is a war law, and International Criminal Court is the primary responsible institutions for these kind of people.
These people are high-profile people, but we all know that there are thousands of other Daesh fighters in Syria. Turkey hosts some 700 of it and wants them to be repatriated. But Europe seems quite reluctant. David, does Europe have a coherent policy?
I would say no.
Why?
Not overall. Well, the UK, for example, has different legal provisions dealing with this situation than other states. So it isn't as though the EU, and I've got to say that because in January, the UK will no longer be in the EU, or you never know. The EU has not brought out any of its own legislation to deal with this, and it's very reluctant to get involved with criminal or terrorist legislation because that's still got some sovereignty for those member states. So it's not coherent, but there are similarities. I know other states are reluctant to bring them back on similar reasons why the UK is legislated. They could pose a threat. They should be tried in the areas where they've committed the crimes. It's very similar reasons why they're not being allowed back, certainly to Europe and certainly, as I know, to the UK.
Okay, but recently a German court ruled that once a Daesh affiliate mother with 3 children must be brought back from northern Syria. So do you think that could set an example for other European countries like Britain and Belgium?
I think it's a real and strong example to be considered by the rest of the European Union members. But we should see how the other member states have their own legal provisions in regards to their citizens in committing crimes in other countries, which in the case, which we know in the case of Syria. So, so this is a serious, I think, an important innovation in this regard, which is somehow new, as I underlined.
So, what are their rights under international law?
International law is a very loose term. It's when you go across the UN, you look at UN conventions and that. It's more of a protocol, really. It can be a toothless tiger at times, unless we actually get people to the International Criminal Court in The Hague and start hearing like we saw in, say, the Yugoslav Civil War, things like that. But just to add to that, I know in the UK there have been women and children who've come back from Syria in the past, and they've been dealt with in a family court. So they have been allowed where I think there's been evidence that they've not been involved. In other words, they were duped going out, but they're trying to get back. I think the issue is those who have actually been active, and Shamina Begum is a good example of why the UK is digging their heels in with her. There's evidence that she was part of that Sharia police and things like that. So I think it's each case on its merits, and I think some will be allowed back.
Is she in the non-combatant category? Because
think
there is also a discussion about what's going to happen to non-combatants and how to prove that they didn't actually fight over there.
Yeah, I think this is what I'm saying. We have in the UK had certainly women and children come back. And there have been some males who've come back. I know some who went out early on and came back straight away, admitted what they did. They went on what we call the PREVENT programme to try and de-radicalise them. But this is the situation. I think it's each case on its merits. But the ones I think who have been out there and were fighting till the end, they were pretty hardcore.
Yeah. Some European governments say prisons are often an incubator for radicalization. It's a danger. They affect the other ones and they get out more radicalized when they're released. So are they a really serious threat as some European countries claim, Kivanc?
Actually, I should add something to David's comments, because as you know, Trump's decision to get out of Syria was principally because of this tackling this serious issue, and he simply said that he doesn't want to deal in the next 50 years with the cost of cost of legal problems that these people would cost to them. So this is a serious thing, and I think this has been previously consulted by the governments, mainly the European governments, who has their citizens as terrorists there in
when
Syria.
they're repatriated, do you think they'll still pose a risk to the European public? I think Britain says
actually,
this a lot.
This is true. This is true. Most of the prisons have been the hotbeds of these radicalization, terrorism. They get to organize them, but what to do with them? Can they release them and organize them outside of the prison? So this is
send them maybe to rehab. No, it doesn't work. Sending them to rehab doesn't work.
Well, we have what we call a PREVENT strategy, which is trying to help those who are vulnerable who are being drawn towards terrorism. And you're right, prison, and for a long time, UK prisons have been a recruiting ground for Islamist inspired terrorists, but we've also got issues with far right. We've had issues with Irish Republicans, dissident Republicans who are outlawed. But they've had converts. They've had like white Christian-born males who've been converted because it's that sense of belonging. So there is that to consider, not just in this region, but even in the European states if they go back.
So where do you think Turkey stands in this respect? I mean, now Turkey detains about 800 foreign Daesh fighters and says, I can't bear them anymore. Europe has to take them back. So what do you make of it?
One thing I should again add in this context is that, those Daesh prisoners or the terrorists who are put to prison, they should know that the war is over. So if they think that the war is not over in Syria or in Iraq, So they will have always this idea of coming back and doing the same thing. So I think apart from dealing with their psychology and rehabilitation, or how to what to do with them, the governments also should do something on the ground to end completely the war and give them the sense that they were defeated.
Yeah, if we get back to our question, because
Yes.
we're running out of time.
Yes, I know.
Where do you think Turkey stands in this
I think
respect?
Turkey, from a Turkish point of view, I think it strengthens the hands of Turkey vis-à-vis the European Union. And it requires the European Union countries to be, more reasonable towards Turkey, handling this very difficult issue and having this hot potato at hand.
Yeah, David, although your country is no more a member of the European
Well, no,
Union,
we still are. We
still are. But yeah, could this dispute over taking these people back will hurt already strained relations between Turkey and the European Union? What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think I'll try and end on a positive here.
Okay.
Depends on the general election, which party wins, but as if the polls are right, we will be out in January.
Okay.
I know historically the UK and Turkey have been allies for many, many years. There is an opportunity for the UK, separate from the other 27 member states, to have some agreement with Turkey. I understand Turkey's position. I understand Operation Peace Spring. We had recently a YPG fighter who was from my area, but he was convicted because he was trained by the PKK, the YPG Centre of the PKK. They are a prescribed terrorist organisation. PKK thrown no threat to the UK, but we've got them prescribed because of our allegiance to Turkey. So there is hope.
Okay, there's hope, you say. Okay, we're out of time, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.